Today's episode of DRL is brought to you by Hella Cocktail Company. My guests don't just come to DRL for me. They also come for the cocktails. Luckily, my friends at Hella Cocktail Company have my back. These guys make amazing mixes, from Bloody Mary to Margarita to Moscow Mule. They also make cocktail bitters, my secret ingredient, and now yours too. It's easy to feel like the best bartender in town when every bottle comes with a simple recipe on it. Hella Cocktail Company, bold flavor, real ingredients, hospitality. Mixing it up since 2011. Shop the collection on Amazon Prime or use code DRL online at hellacocktail.co for free shipping. Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. I'm your host, Tanisha Wood. I just got back from a bachelorette party that was so dope. My guest today, Margaret, was actually there. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Tanisha. It's so good to be here.
Yes. Wasn't that a dope bachelorette party?
We had the best time ever. I've been thinking about it since we got back.
So this is the difference, I think, between bachelorette parties in your 20s and 30s. In your 20s, it's like you're walking the streets, going to bars, drinking out of penis straws.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we truly didn't leave the house.
We didn't. We rented a really nice house in Palm Springs, chilled out, ate, drank, talked, just like had a good time.
Right.
And it was chill.
It was perfect. It felt like all the activity we needed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now I'm back in the Bay, my old stomping grounds. I haven't really like hung out here since I left in 2012.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
It has been way too long. Like I maybe came once, but like for a night.
Are you picking up on all the change in San Francisco?
Well, I noticed the airport was nicer for sure.
Yeah, everybody's been saying that. I haven't noticed it yet.
The BART looks like crap still.
Okay, yeah. So that's consistent.
I haven't been to Oakland yet, but I hear Oakland is dramatically changed and gentrified, and I wouldn't recognize it anymore.
I mean, it's definitely changed, and you see it. For instance, my kids' kindergarten or TK class, there were 22 kids and there were only 3 black kids. And this school is typically very diverse, but it's trending in the opposite direction because you have this influx of young white parents. And even though the school takes 40% of the class from Greater Oakland and not just this little pocket of Oakland, Greater Oakland is becoming white.
So I met Margaret back in 2000 and I want to say 11 or 10.
Yeah.
And I never forgot this about you. I remember when I met you through our mutual friend Nubia. We were at a dinner or something. It was me, you, Vanessa, Nubia, and maybe some other people there as well. And I remember you were a lawyer at the time or something in law. And then you said, I want to be a writer. I think that's what I'm going to do. And now fast forward, 8 years later, you are about to release your second novel. So I think that's amazing. I love it when people are just like, I'm not happy and I'm going to do something that truly makes me happy. So I'm really glad to be sitting here with you all these years later and seeing that you're actually doing the thing that makes you happy. That's amazing to me.
I feel the same way about you. I don't remember what you were doing when I met you, but I followed your journey through New York, through Nubia and Vanessa. And I hear your podcast and I see all your posts and I just feel like you are so truly in your calling and your purpose. And it makes me so happy because more of us need to be doing this. I feel grateful because it's a luxury in some ways to be able to do that. Some people aren't able to, but I think to the extent that people can, it really just opens up your life in a different way when you're 100%. Doing what you're supposed to be doing.
100%.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we're both here. Congrats to us.
Yes.
Black Girl Magic.
Yes.
So the other thing I remember from when I first met you, right? So I met you and then a couple months later, I was invited to, I think, a game night or something that was happening at your house. I don't remember what the exact event was.
Yeah.
And so I went to your house with Vanessa and then I met your husband and I was blown away when I realized your husband was white.
I know. You told me that at the Bachelorette and it made me think, I wonder if everyone has this reaction, but Tanisha's the only person who told me. And then, I have a lot of old friends.
Right.
So they've known me before Thomas and they know Thomas. They've seen the relationship. So I'm like, oh my God, I bet a lot of the new people I meet have that similar reaction and just don't tell me.
Yeah, I think in my mind, and this sounds very stereotypical, but you imagine a certain type of person with a certain type of person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so there is a guy I guess I could see you with based on not knowing you, just straight up looking at you. I'm like, I could guess who her husband would be if I walked into a room.
Yeah.
And so I was just really surprised at it. And now in sort of knowing your work and your writings and the things that you dedicate your life to, it seems in some ways like there might be some conflict there racially. So how did you end up with a white man?
I was a junior in college, and there was this foreign study program opportunity in Trinidad. There were 8 of us, and we were all English majors, and we could go to Trinidad or like Scotland for 4 months, and I chose Trinidad. Kind of being in line with who I was, there was no question to me that I would choose Trinidad.
You were not going to go Scotland.
Right. I just knew for a fact when I got there, I would meet a Trinidadian man and we would probably get married. I just knew that. And the man, would have dreadlocks. I had dreadlocks, and it would just be, at that time, that song, Brown Skin was really popular, that Indiari Brown Skin song. I was like, this is obviously going to be the music video. And, this will be awesome. But I get to Trinidad. There actually was a guy like this. There was a guy that was a Colgate student. His name was like Caleb, I think. I had a crush on Caleb. My husband knows this. I had a crush on Caleb. He had dreadlocks. He was black. He wasn't Trinidadian, but, the same sort of thing. He had come from his school to do this foreign study program. And we were there for the same amount of time. And we lived in the same dorm. And so I was like, oh, this is him. There we go. I mean, we never even saw each other. Like, it was definitely like more of a imaginary crush situation. Right. We never had any kind of interaction or any kind of meanful relationship. It was on that
baby, baby, baby.
Yeah.
I look a lot different outside my college clothes.
Exactly. But meanwhile, I'm hanging out with this group of 8 people every day. We go everywhere together, and we take classes together. We go to the movies every Wednesday. It's like we truly are. We get to be so tight. And the person that I'm closest to in the group is this guy Thomas. And we're just like best friends. Like, we're always on the same page. I think he's so funny. I laugh at all his jokes. I would say about a month and a half into the trip, I realized that I liked him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I like him, but this is obviously not going anywhere. This is in 2002. So it wasn't really common for the interracial relationships the way it is now. Like, now, if I had a 22-year-old little cousin who had a crush on a white guy, I would be like, yeah, go for it. Who cares? Like, but it was different back then. And, I was like, this obviously isn't going anywhere. So I didn't even tell anybody about it. I didn't tell, like, normally when I have a crush on somebody, I tell everybody. I talk about it so much, I just drain it of all its power, right? I didn't tell anybody. And I actually think that's why it worked. Like, I wasn't like obsessing over it because I didn't think it was a possibility. Mm. And so we just kept hanging out as friends. And then,
do you think he liked you at that point?
At that time, I didn't think so. No. He says now that he did, and I believe him. But at that time, no. I don't know if that was like racial brainwashing or insecurity in general. I don't know what that was, but I thought, this is just not going to happen. And
even though you all were technically at the same place in life.
Exactly.
Because you were both at the school, both doing this program.
Yeah. I think what it was, because he was a white guy, I thought, I'm not his type. Like, I thought he likes skinny white girls, obviously, and I'm not a skinny white girl. And there were plenty of them on our trip. So I thought that's probably who he'll end up with. And I didn't even want to like play myself by getting invested. So we always were the ones who wanted to go out and drink.
You and Thomas.
Yes. We always were the ones who wanted to go out and drink and have fun. And one night we were trying to rally the group up and they didn't want to go. And it ended up just being the 2 of us going on this bus to this club, Coconuts, in Trinidad. And I was like feeling like, oh, he's going to think I planned this just to like.
She didn't really invite any of those other people.
I was like so paranoid about it. And so we're on the bus ride and we're like, I think we're drinking on the bus, and we get there and we stand at the bar and we have this conversation. And it became clear to me in that conversation that he was feeling me as well. It became
What was the
very
conversation?
Obvious. I don't remember the conversation, but I remember the vibe. And it was very clear to me at that moment. And then I think we went out as a group a couple of days later. My roommate at the time, who was a white girl, told me after I was dancing with this random Trinidadian guy, she was like, Thomas was staring at you the whole time you were dancing with that guy. And she was like, ooh. Yeah, she was like, Margaret, if you dated Thomas, he would treat you like a queen. She told me that. And I don't know, it was interesting that she said that because it definitely was like planting a seed. And then maybe a couple of nights later, we all went out as a group. We were on different buses, I think. So I got there a little bit later. When I got there, he was already holding my drink, which was a whiskey and Diet Coke. That was my drink at the time. and he handed it to me. We started dancing. I reached back, put my hands in his pockets, and he said that was how he knew everything would be cool. And then we just started making out on the dance floor. And yeah, and then we've been, but I shouldn't say we've been dating since then, because actually it was a long process while we were in Trinidad of, I didn't think it was going to work. And people were telling me it wasn't going to work. My mom was like, this is just his little island thing. I wouldn't get too excited about this.
You're like, I'm not even from here. I got to go back to school.
Right. So what would happen was we would hook up, and then I would say, this isn't going to work. Let's forget about it. And then he would like, somehow, he just was very persistent. And so after
I love
a while,
persistent man.
Yeah, that's what works.
Consistency and persistence is what it takes when you see something that you want.
Yes, and I think especially if the woman is not as secure. Like if it were today, you know, I'm 36. I don't think it would have taken as much persistence.
Right.
But at that time, I just wasn't as secure. So I think I needed him to really prove that he was interested. If he didn't continue to try to like win me over, I think I would have just let it drop.
Now, at that point, you'd never dated a white man or even thought about it. Or had you thought about it before him? Was it something even on your radar?
No, not really. I mean, I'm thinking in high school there was a white guy that I had a crush on, but this was probably a 1 month crush out of like, you know, 20 guys I hadn't been involved with, not sexually, but 20 guys I had been involved with at that time.
Right.
No, I didn't date white guys. No, the answer is no.
So then in a way, were you scared? It sounded like in the process, you were maybe kind of scared, like, I've never done this. What is this? How do I do this? Or like, what was the apprehension that you had?
I think the apprehension was knowing that I was going to have to join that world in a way, and I didn't want to do that, and I still don't.
And when you say that world, do you mean the white world? Or
Yeah, because even though it's funny, I had gone to predominantly white schools. I went to a predominantly white high school. I went to a predominantly white college. But we always found our people, you know, there were like 20 black people in my high school. Maybe there were 30. We all hung out together. You know, I had some white friends that were on the fringes. Like, you know, maybe they were, like I had a friend who was Russian and Jewish. And so she wasn't really part of the mainstream white culture at that school.
She was like out on the outer skirts.
Right. But like, I really didn't hang out with white people. I didn't feel comfortable really with, you know, the mainstream white culture. And and that's just how it was at Dartmouth. All the black people hung out together, and so I just didn't want I didn't want to have to. I knew that it was going to be me joining that world. I knew that it would be, even then I knew it would be me joining that world more than him joining mine. Mm-hmm. I already had a sense for that. And that is what it turned out to be until recently.
What was the early stages of dating for you two, like with you now sort of having to join this world?
At Dartmouth, it was fine. He had a really diverse group of friends. There were like 5 of them. One of them was black. One of them was East Indian. One of them was Stratos is just cool. He's a white guy, a Greek white guy, but really, really cool guy. And one of them was Andy, really cool white guy. And so that actually, and they already were a little bit friends with my friends. So that actually wasn't an issue. It was when we left Dartmouth. That was when I started to notice issues. Like when we went to the Dominican Republic right after college, we went together, and the people there, they would treat him with so much respect. And so the Dominican Republic is so racist and colorist.
With the whole Haitian Dominican thing?
Yes. And so I think the perception most of the time was that I was of Haitian descent. And so they treated him like a white American, and they treated me like they treat people of Haitian descent. I mean, to the degree that I was so privileged because I had my American passport, so they couldn't be as racist as they are systemically to people of Haitian descent, but in the way that they greeted me and the way that they talked to me in the street, that's how they treated me. And so to see that discrepancy was very interesting. It's something that I think about a lot. I didn't know how racist the world was until I started dating my husband, because I see the discrepancy.
Right there in your face, right next to each other.
Yeah. Normally I'm with a black woman. They're treating us both however they're treating us.
Right.
I don't have the frame of reference. So I just think, oh, you know, they're treating us both however they're treating us. But when I saw the difference, I think about it a lot, because it's something that really could have torn down the relationship, the stress that puts on a relationship.
Did he notice it?
No.
Did you guys have those conversations in the early days?
Yes, we did. But a lot of the conversations in those days, because this is in the early 2000s. So there's so much language around it now, and he's so much more woke now than he was. But also there's just so much language now about microaggression. We didn't have that kind of language. So the way that we would talk about it at that time was, I would say something like, this person treated me differently because I was Black. I always knew that. And he would say, no, they're just intimidated by you, or no,
they're intimidated by your power.
Right. Or no, you know, don't. A lot of it was him trying to help me by counseling me out of like letting it affect me. That was how he was handling it for years. And I mean, I didn't, at that time, I just didn't understand how dismissive and undermining that was. We have both come to see that. Thomas and I have both come to see that now. But at the time, I thought, yeah, I'm too sensitive around these issues. I really did think that. I'm too sensitive around these issues. And, you know, I want to work toward being less sensitive around these issues.
It sounds like you guys were both putting a Band-Aid on it at that point, and not exploring the deeper issues or the deeper meanings, but it was just like, okay, in this moment, somebody just treated you in a different way than they treated me. So let's just put a quick little Band-Aid on that and move on from it.
Exactly.
Versus really digging into like why it's happening, how you're feeling about it, and why it's important.
Right. And then also like, what are we going to do about it as a couple? Because it's not, it wouldn't have been possible to sustain that type of disparate treatment over the course of our dating life and our marriage without it taking the relationship down. I really don't believe that. So we had to start to address it differently as a couple as time went on. We did break up for 6 months.
Because of that?
Well, it's funny. At the time, I wouldn't have said it was because of that. I would have said it was because of like a superficial thing. But I remember I was talking to my aunt, who's very, very wise, one day, and she said that race issue is going to be an issue for you guys. And I was like, at that time, no, it's not. You know, no, it's not. Please, no. But, you know, the world is different. And then I realized that it's not going to be like holding up a sign. Like the issue in the relationship isn't going to be like, this is about race. But it's like years and years of microaggressions. As the Black woman in the relationship, I had to feel so devalued in comparison to him that it was very hard to maintain a balanced relationship. Like either I was taking it out on him or I was feeling insecure. It was very difficult in the day-to-day to really feel equal.
In those moments, you weren't recognizing it as that.
No.
What did you think it was?
Well, we had been together since I was 19. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, you know, I need a break. I need to see what else is out there, basically. Right. Yeah. And so we were apart for 6 months. And then it became clear we needed to get back together. And then when we got back together, things started to change. I think things really changed when I had the children. Yeah.
Now, before we get to that, when you guys first started dating or over the years, was there any issue or shock between your families? Because had he ever dated a Black woman before?
No, never. But I always thought it was interesting that when he came back from Trinidad, he was in the car. Like they picked him up from the airport.
His parents?
His parents picked him up from the airport. He was in the back seat. And I guess he was telling them that he was dating someone. And his parents actually asked him what the person's ethnicity was. And I don't know if they thought that
maybe it's a Trinidadian girl.
I'm wondering because I don't know what other indication they could have had, because Thomas didn't date Black women either. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So his parents are very progressive. They're very polite. They're very progressive. And they would never have said anything about it, even if they were thinking it. I'm not saying they were thinking it, because I don't think they were. They're very progressive, and I do think they're on the right side of history. But I do know, because Thomas told me that his mother did, say, have one time, have you thought through this, because this could be hard. Are you guys, where are you planning to live? That kind of thing. Because this could be a strain on the relationship. I don't think it was misguided. I think it was reasonable. Yeah, I think it was reasonable. I think it was reasonable. I think now my dad never said anything, but my mom was more concerned.
Did she have the same sentiments as his mother? Like, have you thought this through, or you know what this could bring or be? She never said it like that. I think she was just very suspicious of him.
I think she was suspicious of him.
Like he just wants to try something.
Yeah. And so she was very hard on Thomas the first year, maybe 2 years, very hard on Thomas. She wanted to make sure he was treating me well. She was very suspicious that he wouldn't be treating me well. And I think some of that was race. I think some of that was just, the way she deals with men in general. But I think a lot of it was race. I think she wanted to make sure I was being treated well. And she assumed that his family would have a problem with it. And she was always very protective of me in that way. And they didn't, but she was always very protective of me in that way. And I remember at our wedding, my dad said in his toast, he thanked Thomas's parents for always treating me so warmly and for always welcoming me. And I wondered if he would have said that to a Black family. Like, I wondered what that was. Like, I think
That's interesting.
I think his gratitude was genuine. Like, I could feel that he was grateful. And I wondered if he would have felt as grateful if it were, because I think he maybe was expecting something different.
Well, it would have been expected if you were with a Black man. They would. I would expect you to welcome her. There's no reason you shouldn't.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. So that was interesting. But no, my dad never would have said anything. He's like Thomas's people. He's very polite, and he wouldn't have said anything like that. He just, but my mom was very suspicious, and my uncles and aunts. I mean, that was a totally different story. They were very openly critical of it.
What did they say? To him they said stuff, or just to you?
They said it to me, but most of them were good. But it was one in particular. He said stuff to me, and then he just wasn't kind to Thomas. But he said to me one day, and he's apologized, and now he loves Thomas. But he said to me, oh, you found I told him I'd been dating someone, and he said, oh, you found a Black man at Dartmouth? And I said, oh, he's not Black. and he said, oh, okay, well, at least tell me he's Latino. And I said, no.
Then he's like, well, at least tell me he's Asian. Indian, something.
He like went through the groups, and I was like, no, he's white. And he was like, he just blew up. He was like, what? And you call yourself all cultural? That's what he said. He's like, and you call, because I had the dreadlocks and all that stuff. He was like, oh, you call yourself so cultural, and you're out here dating a white boy. And, I kind of went off on him. I don't remember what I said, but I went off on him. I was very protective of Thomas, and I went off on him. And I don't regret it. I mean, I think he overstepped. I don't think, but I get it more now. I think I was just living in La La Land out of a need to protect myself from what was out there, because I was afraid of it.
And also when people come at you in that way, they're speaking from their experience.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
his experience as a Black man in America is really what he was upset about.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you were the person that was there, perhaps switching to the other side that wasn't on his side as a Black man.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good way to say it.
How long were you guys together before you got married?
We got engaged in 2010, so 8 years.
Yeah, so 8 years, obviously, like the question of marriage is going to come up.
Yeah.
But was that another big hump from a race standpoint, or were you already like, we're doing this at this point, it's fine, no big deal, we've already been here?
It's funny, I think about it now, and I'm like, that it was almost naive of me to not have it be more of, but I think we had been in a relationship for so long. It's funny when you're with somebody that long, I really don't even know how to imagine. It's been almost half my life with Thomas. It's like, I mean, even if we weren't together, I don't know how to imagine my life without him in it. So I just didn't think about the race part. With getting married, it was just the next logical step.
And so did anything change with the marriage? Not just race-wise, but just generally.
In general.
Yeah, from having been with somebody for 8 years, does marriage and that title actually change anything?
No, I think when I got engaged, it changed because I was always like a little bit resentful. 8 years is a long time. So I think, we weren't arguing about why we weren't engaged yet once I got engaged. And that had been happening a lot as the years, crept on. So I think that changed. The resentment that I had and like the insecurity, like, why isn't he marrying me? But it wasn't the engagement that solved it. It was really a lot of therapy that helped me to heal the issues that not being engaged was bringing up. But it wasn't. I don't want to make it sound like getting engaged solved that problem, because it wasn't. It was more like going through therapy helped me to heal the the issues that it was bringing up. I mean, people would ask all the time, oh, you think you'll ever get married? And I would always feel like they're implying that he doesn't want to marry me. And all of that stuff needed to be worked out before I could comfortably be in a healthy marriage, I think. So that was that was the hurdle there. But no, getting married, it was the same relationship. Nothing changed.
So what were the issues? Like, what was making, when you went through therapy, what did you dig up that was making you feel like marriage needed to happen like then and there?
Oh, it was just like a sense of unworthiness that I wanted Thomas to quell by like proving to the world that I was worthy of marriage or that I was, lovable. It was all that kind of stuff. Just really old stuff from childhood. Like, and then like, I also had a lot of anger because I felt like, I didn't feel worthy of it. And when he wasn't proposing, I felt like that was showing the world publicly that I wasn't worthy of it. And so I would get angry.
Like, after 8 years, you think I'm still not worthy.
Yeah. And I felt embarrassed. because we would go to weddings. And I'm like, well, they met last year.
They've known each other for 6 months.
I'm like, what is it about her? There was all that stuff that I just needed to, and the truth was, that needed to be worked out before I got married, or it wouldn't have been a healthy marriage. But it also 100%. Was once I realized all that, I realized that Thomas didn't want to get married before he was 30. And that had nothing to do with me. Like, I started to see it clearly once I worked that stuff out. It had nothing to do with me.
I 100% agree with that. I literally say every other episode, I say, no one should be married before 30.
Okay.
I mean, the human brain doesn't fully develop till you're like 26, 27.
See, I was like, we met at 19. We should be married 25. And then I'm from the South. But he had, in his mind, he didn't see himself married until he was 30. And it's funny, it was like clockwork. Once he turned 30, he's like, okay. It was so weird. And he had been saying it the whole time. And I was like, no, that's not it. That's not it.
I would discourage anybody below 30 from getting married.
Yeah.
I just think too much. You're just a different person. You understand yourself more. You understand your life. You understand your needs. And don't bring marriage into it until you fully self-actualize.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you see statistically how it works out.
100%.
Before 30. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So you said that once you guys had children is when things really started to shift in probably how you guys saw each other's world.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, before I got pregnant, we spent a lot of time hanging out with my husband's white friends. And, I had my own group of black girlfriends as well. But when we hung out as a couple, it was primarily with my husband's white friends who had come to be my own friends as well. I was thinking about this last night. I was often the only black person and black woman in those groups. And I thought I felt comfortable with it at the time. Like I said, I had my own group of friends, so it wasn't like my sole source of support. But it wasn't always the greatest fit. And I didn't quite understand why until later. Now, once I got pregnant, a lot of that hanging out just naturally stopped because I'm pregnant, and a lot of it was centered around drinking and stuff. And then we moved to Oakland just to buy a house. We moved to Oakland because we were going to have 2 kids. So once we moved to Oakland, a lot of that shifted too because the friends were in San Francisco. Most of my black friends were in Oakland. It just kind of shifted circumstantially. And then once I had the children, it was like, I just changed completely. It became very important to me for my children to be around people who thought about race in a progressive way and who understood race in a very deep and enlightened way. Mm-hmm. And I was like very picky about people who weren't that way. I didn't want to spend my time with them.
You're like, we can't even go out to dinner.
I mean, yeah, because I had limited time. And also I feel like I had these little precious beings who were black, little babies, and they needed to be around enlightened behavior. And I just started to like see how in certain ways I hadn't been around enlightened behavior and hadn't really been picky enough about it myself in protecting myself from it. And I started to see ways in which I had sort of been shrinking myself in these environments. And once I understood that, it was impossible to go back.
Wow.
I still see them. I still love them dearly. I do. But I would never put myself in a situation at this stage of my life where I'm the only Black person in a group and we're hanging out on a consistent basis. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, when you said that you at times were shrinking yourself in those interactions with those groups, what did you mean by that?
Well, okay. So I'll just talk about the bachelorette party. There were, 23 Black women. I feel like it was just such a powerful group of Black women. It was such a powerful group of Black women. And I felt very like seen in that group. And I felt very, I felt like it was almost a sacred space where we were honoring and supporting each other. The energy was a very high level energy. It was just, I don't know. It was just a very sacred situation to me. And in some of the situations I was in otherwise, a lot of it was our age too. I mean, we were young. We were like in our 20s. I mean, these are great people. And I do think hanging out now would be different. But I just don't think it was the same type of fit. Like, we didn't have the same type of upbringing. I didn't feel like I was necessarily fully seen. And I don't feel like it was like an equally yoked relationship among the group members.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I want to think about it more because I want to get more specific about it. But yeah, that's what's coming to me now.
One of the things that I have noticed, I'm not around a lot of like large groups of white people.
Yeah.
Like if I'm hanging out, it's generally either a Black group of people or a very diverse group of people. But in my adulthood, especially since not working at a company and working for myself, those interactions are rare for me. But what I did notice when I did have them more frequently is that somehow in that group, that something about race would always be brought up.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I always would wonder, if I weren't the like Black person in this room, would that have naturally come up? Or like, am I changing the dynamic by being in this room? Like, am I somehow making, and it wasn't bad things. Like, I'm not saying it was anything ever bad being said or made to belittle me.
Yeah.
But it was certainly like brought up. And I'm like, did I just shift the dynamic of this room simply by being here? And like, was that necessary? Would it have been brought up if I wasn't here?
Right.
So there was always this sort of like questioning about what was happening and if it would have naturally happened if I was white or if I wasn't there.
Right.
Those are some of the things that I've noticed in those groups.
Yeah, that's a good way to say
it.
And
I also found myself sort of being the Black authority, which I never liked.
I know.
I don't like being the person that speaks for all Black people, all women, all Jamaicans, all whatever it may be.
Right.
But you become this authority figure, like the oracle of Blackness now, where it's like, so what do what do you guys think about Trump? And you guys meaning like you Blacks. Like, what do you think? And like, to me, like being in a more diverse group, it takes the weight off having to be that person. It's like, well, we can all have a different perspective and we can all talk about it, but like my opinion isn't, I'm not speaking for everybody now.
Right, exactly.
But did you ever find yourself in those sorts of positions, sort of speaking for everybody?
I think there was sort of a cool Black girl role that I was fulfilling without trying to. I was just being myself. But, I was the one who happened to listen to hip hop and, that kind of stuff. It makes me really uncomfortable in retrospect because I can see it more clearly. And it's funny, I ran into a group like that where there was one Black girl like a year ago at a birthday party. And I was just observing her and I was like, oh my God, that was me 5 years ago. And she was drinking a lot. And I remember I used to do that too. I don't think I was comfortable. Like, and I still drink, of course, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think I was comfortable in that group, and I was trying to make myself comfortable. And I was just drinking a lot. But there was something else I wanted to say too. I just remembered, like, I always tell my husband this, it's not a natural group. If it's an all white group like that, that's not natural. Like the fact that I'm their only Black friend, there's something very disturbing about that. And I don't want to be in that kind of environment. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that means that you've spent 30 some odd years navigating this world, never having come across someone who's not, very specific, like you in a very specific way.
Living in a major city.
Yeah. And I'm like, somehow you were able to do that. Me being here, it doesn't feel like a naturally designed orchestration of events, I just don't feel like you really get it if I'm the only Black person that you're friends with. And that was the case. Like I was the only Black person a lot of these people were friends with.
You've had a lot of interactions with your husband's friends where you're the only Black woman. Did he have similar feelings on the other side? So when he was hanging out with all your Black friends, what was he feeling in those moments?
He doesn't care at all. He loves it. Since we had the kids, our life is very heavily Black now. Like, he's part of that world now. I no longer put myself in that other world unless it's, a special occasion and it's not necessary.
I only hang out with white people on special occasions.
It's not purposeful. Of course it's family,
right.
That's different. But like, I just don't put myself in that environment too much. I think it's unnatural. I think it's re-stimulating for a Black person. Well, for me, I'll just speak for myself. I think it's re-stimulating. And I think I think it can be traumatic to keep putting oneself into those situations, overly. I think, here and there it's fine. And of course family is different, but I think it just had to be more balanced. And now it's very, very balanced. So it's been good. And I think he likes my friends a lot, but he definitely never feels that anxiety. I'm always waiting for someone to say something inappropriate. And there are only so many times when you're going to challenge yourself to say something. It's not something, I think, where every single time a white person says something inappropriate, I don't always correct them. I would say maybe 30% of the time I correct them. 70% of the time I probably react differently. I either let it go or whatever. I remove myself from the situation. But I don't think we have the energy to correct white people every single time. I mean, it would be my life's work, right? So
what are you? I'm a white corrector.
Right? It's just too much. I don't want to be in that situation all the time. So yeah, but he doesn't have to do that. When he's in a group of Black people, and by the way, he works like in diversity and inclusion with a group of Black people. And when he's in those groups, he's not re-stimulated. He's not triggered. Like, he's not dealing with generations of white supremacy and what that looks like in terms of how he'll be targeted. Mm-hmm. So it's totally different. It's just like a cleaner experience. And I don't know how the group of Black people feel with him being the only white person there. That's something different. I don't know about that, but he doesn't feel any kind of way about it.
Does he see your children as Black?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because they are Black. I mean, we say they're Black, but I also lately have been saying, they're biracial because I don't want to minimize or make invisible half of them because their father is white and I don't want to give them issues around like, I hate my whiteness. I don't know what kind of issues would happen with that. And another thing too, I was thinking about this recently. I mean, I can't blame all of this on the interracial stuff, but because my parents are lawyers and my step-parents are lawyers, and I was probably like fated to be a lawyer, but I remember almost consciously thinking that I would be more accepted in Thomas's family if I went to law school. I remember almost consciously thinking that, even though I did not want to be a lawyer. I remember thinking it would be like
more worthy.
Yeah, like more worthy, and also just like maybe more acceptable. Yeah, more acceptable. I remember thinking that, and I don't want to blame it all on that because, like I said, it was probably going to happen either way. But I do remember thinking that it would be more acceptable for that kind of family if I were a lawyer. But I think it was just internalized racism. I think I knew that people would think, some people, not all people, and maybe not even most people, but I think I knew that some people would think he was quote unquote dating down. And I thought, if I'm a lawyer, then it'll even it out some.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that deep?
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you finally decided to make the leap and leave law and become a writer, was that something that weighed on your mind? How will people view this career versus that career, and like what will my stature then be? It
didn't just like subconsciously weigh on me. It was something that kept coming up over and over because I could see the real difference in how people would treat me, Black and white, based on me now being a writer and having nothing to show for it. Versus when I would tell people I was a lawyer, people would say, oh, okay, that made people comfortable. Oh, okay, I'm a lawyer too, or whatever. I work in a real job too. And and then the writing thing, I think people Black and white didn't know how to handle it, and they very often undermined it, very often without meaning to.
Right.
They just,
anything creative generally, until you have a hit of sorts, is seen as lower than a doctor or lawyer, any sort of profession like that.
So I expected it. I definitely expected it, but it was extremely difficult when it happened because it would happen for 5 years. I was writing for 5 years without being published.
Which is a relatively short time.
Yeah, it's not bad.
You really think about the trajectory of most writers and creative people in general. Like,
absolutely.
To have a best-selling book and an acclaimed book in only 5 years is really an accomplishment,
it's
Margaret.
Not bad. Well, thank you. It's not bad. But the thing was, I think I was so addicted to achievement. And so it was like, people would say, oh, what are you up to? And I felt it was a really good thing.
I've been writing in this dark room.
Right. Right. And people would say, oh, is there anything out that I could buy? And I'd be like, no. But it was a really, really good thing because I was able to develop myself in a way where I required less of that validation. It was a very good thing that happened and that I needed to happen.
What made you actually take that leap? Like, what was the thing where you said, I'm just going to do it?
Oh, well, I believe God was telling me to leave that job. From the moment I walked through the doorway, I was like walking, there was this dark hallway in this office in Palo Alto. And the moment I walked through there, I was like, whoa, I'm not supposed to be here. I knew that for a fact.
Oh my God.
I wasn't supposed to be here.
I've had that same feeling and I know it. And it's strong.
It is. But you're like, oh, well,
they pay me well.
Never mind. In 2 weeks, I'm going to get a little bit of something to validate this decision. So, but it was the money. And it was also like, what else am I going to do? I truly didn't know what else I was going to do. I always knew I wanted to be a writer, but like, I also wanted to be a psychologist. And I also wanted to be, I didn't know. And it was like a steady, reliable job for a while until they went bankrupt. And I liked the validation I was getting from being a lawyer at a big firm.
You liked the reaction of people when you told them.
I did. And what was the turning point? Well, we didn't have a lot of work. I mean, they were heading toward bankruptcy, but we didn't know it at the time. And so we knew we didn't have a lot of work. So I could tell like they were preparing to either lay people off or fire people in a massive way. You could tell because people were getting mediocre reviews and it was just obvious. And then that was just going on in the industry in general. So I knew that was coming. And that voice that told me I wasn't supposed to be there that first day, it kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And finally, I realized, like, if you don't leave, you're going to be fired because God does not want you here.
Right.
And so
he will make you leave.
Yes.
On your own or otherwise.
Yes. And it's like, do you want to leave with some dignity or do you want to have to go to therapy for 2 years to talk about the trauma of being fired? Not that anything's wrong with being fired. And then they offered all of us this incentive program. They were like, you can leave for a year and we'll give you a portion of your salary. And I sat on that offer for like a year. And then finally things got so bad with my boss that I was just like, I'm just going to go. And I left. Yeah. But it's funny, Tanisha, I made the decision to leave after I got married, like a few days after I got married. And people always think it was the finances of it, but it wasn't. Thomas and I have always been like jointly financed. We've been together for so long.
Right.
It wasn't like I was like, finally I can have his money.
Right. You're like, I've been had his money if I wanted it. No?
But it was more like, I think sitting in that wedding and listening to all these toasts that people were giving about me, I was like, people just had so many positive things to say. It was so uplifting and affirming. And I really got to a place where I was like, if all of this is true, why am I working at this bullshit job that I don't like? And it just gave me the confidence to leave. I really think that's what it was.
Now I feel like we all should have a wedding.
Yeah, I know.
now I'm like, I just want a wedding so I can hear about myself.
Yeah, but it's so funny because did you go to Vanessa's birthday party?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Okay, remember all those toasts that everyone gave?
Yes.
She said she said the same thing. She said that the things people were saying about her, to her, regarding like the impact she had on their lives, not only their lives, but on their kids' lives. She said that gave her so much confidence. And she says that that's part of the reason she thinks she was able to start dating Lowell and all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think there's something about this like group affirmation process.
I feel like we need to start something around
this.
It doesn't have to be a wedding, but now I'm like, that needs to happen in some way on a consistent basis where people can like really hear about who they are and the impact that they're making in other people's lives.
Yes.
Because a lot of times you put things out there and you're never really sure if it's doing anything for anybody or yourself. You know what I mean? So it's like good to hear that.
I know.
Feel that.
I know. I think it's so important. And when she told me that, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I was trying to figure out how to do it for another friend of mine because I think she could use it. But yeah, you're right. Some kind of organized way that people could. Yeah. Huh.
Somebody think about that and get back to us if you come up with a way.
Exactly.
So now you put out your first book in 2017 and it was called A Kind of Freedom. Mm-hmm. And that book touched a lot on race and how that occurs through like segregation and how that all occurs through generations. So had you always wanted to write in that way and about that subject matter and having race kind of be a thread through your work? Or do you think that came to you based on your experience maybe with your husband or being in white spaces predominantly growing up?
I've always been a race person. Like, it's growing up in New Orleans. Growing up in New Orleans in the 80s, New Orleans was pretty segregated, and it's growing up with the parents I grew up with too. My mother talked about race constantly. It's funny, since Thomas has come into our lives, my mother doesn't even see race anymore. But and she's always like, Margaret, why are you so into race? And I'm like, I was watching the movie Roots at the age of 7. Like,
that's why I'm so into race.
So, I mean, it's just the way I grew up. I see everything through that filter. Everything through that filter. When I walk into any room, I'm always thinking about race. Who's in the room according to race? And I in some ways, I wish I could get out of it because it's a prison in some ways. But that's why I write about that stuff, because I'm always thinking about it. It's not even, I don't even think I could write about anything else.
You had said to me at the bachelorette party that you feel like one of your missions in life is to maybe educate people on race, specifically maybe white people.
It's not a mission that I want, but it's like that voice I keep talking about is sort of telling me that through the way the book is being received and through who's drawn to it and through the environments I find myself in, I wonder if that's related to my purpose. I do, because like I said, if I hadn't met Thomas, I wouldn't find myself in many white rooms. That's not the kind of life that I lived before I met Thomas. And now, I have white family members whom I love and whom I've come to understand. And then when I go to places, I have a lot of Black readers, but I have a lot of white readers. You'd be surprised how many white readers I have. They just are really liking it and they're drawn to it.
Can you give a brief synopsis of your first book?
Yeah,
A Kind of Freedom?
absolutely.
Because I was surprised at the readership and the audience based on the subject matter of the book.
Yeah, it's about 3 generations of a New Orleans family spanning World War II to post-Katrina. The matriarch of the family is narrating from the 40s and Jim Crow New Orleans. And then we have her daughter in the 80s who's fallen in love with a man who's addicted to crack. And then we have the matriarch's grandson in present-day New Orleans, post-Katrina New Orleans, who's in and out of jail on drug charges. And the idea is that we have this idea that we're in a post-racial society and that we're progressing according to chronology. But in many ways, the system of Jim Crow has been replaced by other systems along the way that's doing the same sort of work. So in the 80s, we have the war on drugs, and present day time we have mass incarceration, and they're different names, but they're all doing the very serious and damaging work of oppressing the Black community. It's just like a different face on it, but it's the same situation repeatedly. The book weaves between these 3 generations. You would expect, this woman in the 40s should be doing worse than her grandson, but actually as time goes on, the family degenerates.
Now, why do you think so many white readers are drawn to the story?
As much division as there is in the country right now, I do think there are quite a few white people who are trying to do better and trying to learn, trying to educate themselves. And it's a safe way to educate yourself. Like, reading a book is a safe way to educate yourself. Like, you don't even necessarily have to talk about it with anybody, you don't have to necessarily take the risk of doing things wrong or saying the wrong thing. You're reading a book and you can feel good about the fact that you're reading this book. It's just a safe way to elevate yourself a little bit in the social order, I think. Like I said, I have so many white readers and I talk about it all the time in rooms with many, many white people. And I never talk about it in a way that's going to incite guilt. It's not that I'm trying to do that to make them feel better. It's just my way in general. I don't want anybody to feel guilty. I don't think that's helpful. So I try to talk about it in a way where we can all move forward. I think it's a common problem that's infecting America, and we all need to heal it. I think they're in a special position to heal it because of the power dynamic.
Right.
And I think a lot of it is on them because of the way it was started.
Do they get that? Like,
I
when
think
you
so.
are in these readings and you're having conversations with them about the book, is that something that they understand?
The people who come to those readings, yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I would say most of them do. The ones who come. But, the ones who come, they're doing pretty well already because they're coming to the reading and they're reading these kinds of books. Yeah, I think they get it. It's becoming clearer and clearer that I do feel like because of who's showing up, I'm supposed to be talking about it with these people for some reason, and I'm cool with that.
Well, congratulations on the success of that.
Oh, thank you.
Like I said, I love that you walked in your purpose and what you wanted to do and made amazing things happen.
I appreciate that, especially coming from you.
Thank you. Your next book came out November 5th.
Oh, yes, November 5th.
The Revisioners.
The Revisioners. So that tells the story of a woman named Josephine in the 1920s and also in 1855. She's a former slave and a former sharecropper. And in the 1920s, she's living next door to a white woman. And the white woman's younger than she is. She's more insecure. And she starts to forge this friendship with Josephine. And Josephine is reticent at first, but then they cautiously form this friendship. And Josephine learns that the white woman is a member of the KKK. So we flash back to her life in 1855, escaping from slavery throughout her timeline. And then we also have many generations later, her great-great-great-granddaughter, Ava, who's a biracial woman in present-day America who has to move in with her white grandmother because she's fallen on hard times financially. And her white grandmother starts exhibiting very erratic behavior that soon becomes racist. And the storylines between Josephine and the white neighbor and Ava and the white grandmother start to converge.
How long did it take you to write this?
About a year.
How does all this come to you?
Tanisha, it's funny that you ask this. I had this idea when I was in the Dominican Republic living with Thomas. We had been dating for about 2 years at that point, and I always thought it would be interesting to show, like through a book, how the ghosts of slavery are with us. Even like me, like walking into the elevator with a white woman, like, and whatever dynamic we end up having in that elevator, like the ghosts of slavery are there. Like, it's, even if you're not consciously registering it, that's just in there, and it's informing our interactions. And so it's there for that. It's there for my relationship with my husband's cousins. It's there with my relationship with his mom. I mean, it's there with everything. So I always wanted to have this 2-part storyline where, like, there would be a slavery section and there would be a black woman and a white woman. And then there would be a present day section and there'd be a black woman and a white woman. And it would be revealed that the current day section was like a reincarnated version of the past one. So they'd be the same people, essentially, the same souls. And it would be showing up in different ways because we're in a different time period, but the same dynamics would come into play. Just to show, like, how, you know, this stuff is not new. Like, there's nothing new going on.
It hasn't
here.
gone away.
Yeah.
We don't live it in the same way, but it's
yeah,
there. Like, you can always feel it.
You can,
you
right?
know? Like,
okay.
It's always like, it's just there.
Yeah, it's so true. I didn't expect to have this 1924 section. That just came to me out of nowhere. That truly was like a channel thing. Mm-hmm. And then the slavery section, I always did want to have a slavery section, but in this slavery section, there's an escape. And it's this really cool way that they escape doing this like mental mind magic. They basically all come together to imagine themselves out of slavery, and they contribute all their mental energy to helping one person escape who's part of this draw and who,
wow,
it's crazy. That came to me out of nowhere. I mean, that was not anything I consciously designed. So that was channeled. And then the Josephine farm section was channeled. The rest of it I've been thinking about for a long time. But you know who helps me a lot? My husband. He's very creative. We'll just be sitting and we'll just be talking about these ideas, and he'll be like there's a chilling plot twist at the end of this book, and that was my husband's idea.
Is he named co-writer? No.
I know, right? I know, right? He's always like community property.
This came out November 5th.
Yeah.
Where can people pick it up?
You can find The Revisioners at indiebound.org, barnesandnoble.com, or of course Amazon.com, or in any bookstore.
And please leave a review after you read it.
That would be great. Reviews on Goodreads are awesome.
And where can people reach you?
I am on Facebook, Margaret Wilkerson Sexton. On Twitter, I am at mwilkers13. And on Instagram, I'm mwilkers13.
Well, this has been amazing, Margaret.
Oh,
I was really looking forward to this.
Too.
So I'm really glad that we made it happen.
Me too.
And I love what you're doing, and I love your quest to educate.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes. And you guys, please reach out to me and let me know what you think of today's show at Tanisha Wood on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And until next time, wish me love.
Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.